to take over most of the sales of the current. Those will be a lot smaller. So that third generation with 90 megs on a 10 megahertz channel, like that's the eventual point where I want to get everything. So we'll probably hold off on doing the smaller channels on the current MIMO stuff and just focus on doing the smaller channel stuff on the third gen.
The next question deals with the WNMS. When you're pushing new firmware with the WNMS, is the config of each device automatically backed up, updated on the device, such as the config and IP, and then returned to the device after it's updated?
Any of these, when you do a firmware update, it keeps the current running config. So firmware updates don't make it reset to defaults or anything like that. It all keeps the current config.
And sticking with the tools, can you say on the link calc tool, what's the significance of the link availability percentage that is presented on the report page?
Okay, so we talked about that a pretty good bit, but I guess I didn't really make it clear what that percentage means. So there's the whole concept of percentage uptime and how long, on average, something will be down based on some given condition. And it's actually, if you look, surprisingly enough, there's a Wikipedia article on high availability that explains this in really good detail, how that whole sort of system works. But what it breaks down to is when you have something that has 5 nines, 99.999, that basically means it's like 5 minutes of downtime a year. So if you have a link that calculates out to 5 nines, in theory, on average, your link should only go down 5 minutes per year based on rain, for instance. But then, the more you stop dropping off layers of granularity, you look at like 99.9%, 99.900, then it's going to have in terms of hours of downtime. So that's where that percentage uptime, basically it tells you, at this given modulation rate, how much is the link going to be down on average because of rain.
Okay. And then going back to your link calc tool again, it shows a graphical display of the Fresnel zone and the 60% and a 60% Fresnel zone. Is it required that you have no obstructions in either of these zones for the link to actually work?
It's requirement is such a loose sort of word. So when you're getting down to that level of granularity, like there's a lot of stuff at play. Like with the data we're pulling the USGI, Geographical Society data for everywhere in the U.S., and it's really high resolution in the U.S. and Canada and parts of Mexico. But at the same time, like, there's things we really can't account for like seasonal tree size or clear cuts or, building sizes and stuff like that. So basically what I tell people is if you see stuff in the 60%, then generally odds are it's going to be gummed up. And the link may sort of work but not run really well. But if it's, just in the first Fresnel zone, then it could be, it's kind of hit or miss. Like, you really need to go check it out. In both cases, you need to do some further research and look at it in the situation like, hey, this link may work, but it's looking kind of sketchy. So you're going to need to do some more in-depth sort of searching and go feel it out and stuff like that. Just because, there's only so much detail we can get from the land data. But if you're in a case where your Fresnel zones are clear by several hundred feet, then, in all cases, unless there's something horribly wrong with the graph data or they put a giant tower or, mountain up that popped up overnight or something due to an earthquake, odds are that link's going to run pretty well.
So it's sort of a mix between the physics of it and knowing the terrain.
Right.
Make sure it works right. A user asks, will new products or firmware updates have a built-in spectrum analyzer?
Yeah, so the third generation is going to have a sort of granular spectrum analyzer capability to do like a 1 meg step that's more of a detailed sort of spectral analysis.
Great, so it'll give you a little bit of a tool there.
Yeah, and it'll give you the sort of detail that you need to see. Otherwise, until then, you'll want to run one of the cheaper sort of spectrum analyzers or like a Canopy SM or something's got a pretty decent one in it and so on and so forth. But yeah, that'll probably be the really detailed granular one will be in third gen.
A user asks, he says he's in the market for a licensed P2P links. Can you talk a little bit about the cost range and the how affordable that is to do?
Well, I can't say anything due to the cost. You can give your Streakwave guys a call for the 620S, and they can price out everything for you. But I can't really speak in terms of cost. But I will say that it's extremely cost competitive with everything in the market, and because we give you the value of including power supplies and stuff like that, you're not dropping $500 or $800 or $1,000 on additional hardware. And because it's completely licensed to run full speed, you're not stuck with a big expensive radio system only in those 50 megs. You have to spend all this extra money to make it go faster. So when you get it, it's ready to rock and roll. Throw in your coax and your Cat5, and you'll be running full speed.
And as Caleb said, our guys are trained very specifically to do cost comparisons and give you quotes on the LigoWave equipment, as well as help you with FCC licensing and licensing needs as you may need it for licensed gear. So if you have questions about licensed or unlicensed equipment, go ahead and give Streakwave a call. Another question, and we're coming to the close here pretty soon, are there support fees involved for the SNMP software? And to keep the firmware available, can you talk about whether or not there's any such fees or what they do if they need support?
Support is all free in terms of product support, firmware updates, and everything like that. It's all free. So support, we've got a lot of different support options. Yeah, it's basically around-the-clock support. We've got support offices in here and in Europe, and we're actually opening up some Asian support offices. But it's email, telephone support primarily. So you can, all that contact info is on our website, and if anyone has any specific questions, you can see my email address is cnower@ligowave.com. You can also ping me directly as well. But there are no charges for firmware updates or management systems or anything like that.
And I imagine that you showed a few pictures of different installations, but I assume this is equipment that can be used across all different types of applications. Do you want to talk a little bit about the applications or solutions that are being used, or some examples?
Yeah, so, primarily, like our main business line is all in your traditional WISP or wireless ISP market. That's basically where all of our sales goes. But that being said, like the ability to run a very high throughput licensed or unlicensed wireless bridge between 2 points is extremely handy for a number of different organizations. For instance, like our 24 gig, I think a majority of the 24 gig solutions are not necessarily sold to ISPs, but they're sold to like building campuses. Like we've done a couple links like with Goodwill. We've done some stuff with some hospitals where we've connected. They've put in a new building that's a mile or two away. They want a 100 meg pipe between them, but don't want to have to pay a reoccurring fiber loop cost and stuff like that from the telco. And they do that 24 gig link, gives them 100 megs, so they're building, they're rocking and rolling. We do a lot of video transport with our unlicensed stuff. They'll aggregate a bunch of like IP cameras to one point, and we'll backhaul all that traffic. Remote data collectors, we've been doing a number of that sort of stuff. So, primarily ISP stuff, but like I said, the ability to run these sort of high throughput, very cost-effective links gives us the ability to hit a bunch of different markets. Basically, where wherever just someone needs some speed, we can help them out with it.
Excellent. Well, I know there's a couple more questions, and some of the questions are a little bit more in-depth than we can cover here directly. So I will forward those questions on to Caleb and Jim and have them respond to you directly. If you didn't get your question answered, we'll try and get back to you with a specific answer. Again, this webinar will be available for replay on Streakwave's YouTube channel at youtube.com/Streakwave or on the landing page at streakwave.com/LigoWave. I'd like to thank Caleb Nauer and Jim Campbell of LigoWave for this in-depth discussion and overview of their products. There's obviously a lot of applications that can be used with LigoWave. Again, Streakwave is the distributor, a distributor for LigoWave, and we can provide you with information, background planning, project planning, and the equipment that you need to do your projects. If you have any questions, please give us a call. We're very pleased to be putting on these webinars and ask that you watch for them in the future. Streakwave webinars are a regular occurrence. You can come by invitation. They generally have no cost, and we appreciate your attendance and your questions. And I'd like to thank the attendees for coming today, and we will see you next time. Thank you, everybody, for your attendance.